This SoonerScoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. If you're ready to see the rest of the world just as clearly, get your fresh perspective at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIX. Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here. We will be joined by Josh McCuistion, another recruiting report. Plenty to get into for Oklahoma as things kind of heat up and get a better idea about the defensive line recruitment in the 2026 class, as well as 2027 running backs, or 2028 running backs, 2027 other guys. But you did have a little bit of news on the tight end position this morning. You can go to SoonerScoop.com. Oklahoma hosted a visitor yesterday.
Yeah, Missouri State tight end Lance Mason.
Okay.
I think it went pretty well, but I'll let everybody go sign up and read it on SoonerScoop.com.
Definitely can do that. Before we get to Josh, before we bring him in, let us tell you about William & Lauren, the official custom clothier of OU football. William & Lauren outfits your favorite OU players in custom suits that boost their confidence off the field to match their confidence on the field. Perfectly tailored clothing ensures every Sooner stands out in comfort and style. At prices that make luxury accessible, visit William & Lauren at Oklahoma City, as the great Giorgio did. You'll see on screen, or online at williamandlauren.com. They also got the brick and mortar up in the 918 for our friends up in Tulsa. Dress like a champion and make your style as legendary as Oklahoma football. I think you got the call, didn't you? Your suit's in?
My suit is done. I think I'll go and pick it up here in a couple weeks maybe. And
beautiful.
I think we'll get some of that on video so you guys can check it out, but I'm super excited.
Very, very nice. Can't wait to look at you on the wedding day. I'm going to try to ruin it. No, I'm just kidding. It's
80 days
great
away.
times. 80? That's
80
it?
days.
Damn. That seems far away, but it's also
It doesn't
very, very
feel
close.
far away. Yeah, it feels very close.
I'm sure that, things will heat up here,
Yep.
not just the temperature. All right, let's bring in Josh McCuistion for the beginning of the recruiting report. Josh, welcome in. How are we?
Guys, good. Just kind of, I don't know about you guys, but, just getting ready for tonight,
There you
kind of,
go.
geared up. So, yeah, ready to,
Where'd you get
ready
that
to see
hat?
the Thunder go to work. Guys, so I'm going to tell you the truth. This hat has a little bit of a story with it. Bought this in the peak, years ago in a certain game 5.
Oh, no.
While up by about 30 on a team from the Bay. And since then, not a lot of success in the playoffs for the Thunder, but we're going to break the streak here. This hat it's due. It's suffered some bad moments, but it's going to be all right now going forward.
Coming off of a 51-point win, if they lose tonight, Josh, you have to burn the hat on the program tomorrow.
The hat will be, yes.
We will
After
drive
that
to
win,
Houston and burn
if we can reverse that, it's I think George is right. I may have to drive to the peak and burn it outside the arena just to make sure all the demons are gone.
We'll get it on YouTube channel too.
Probably wouldn't be the only thing that's burning out there. All right, you made. By the way, Kawhi Leonard any good?
My gosh.
A little bit.
Wow.
We're monitoring the situation with the Clippers right now. I think is probably the best way to say it. Hopefully they play 7, and every game from here on out goes to like triple overtime. He was phenomenal on Tuesday night. Let's start here just to get it out of the way, because I think that we can't do a recruiting report without starting with the quarterback position. 2026 specifically, Jaden O'Neal, Bowe Bentley, Josh. There's so much like rumor and innuendo out there right now that I think that it was your time to speak, and you wrote about it today on SoonerScoop.com. You can go there and read about it, but just in, I guess, a summary type way, there are a lot of things that are out there on both of these quarterbacks. The possibility of them bringing both in. Oklahoma not talking to Jaden O'Neal. Just kind of a factor fiction here. Where do things stand just as a whole? Kind of a wait and see mode still?
Yeah, for those that haven't read it, please go check it out. It's a story that I kind of started on with an idea, and then it kind of went in a different direction from where I expected. But as far as where things stand, guys, I think it's what we expect. We're waiting for the situation with Jaden O'Neal in Oklahoma. It's felt like the longest breakup I've ever seen. Like it just, I'll see something, this is happening or this is going on, and it's like I don't know why we have to keep doing the Oklahoma commitment thing. And that's nothing against Jaden. I think if all things were equal, Jaden would very much still be invested in Oklahoma. I think they're just moving in different directions. Like, I think there are schools that are making him more of a priority than Oklahoma has for the last few months. And at the same time, I think Oklahoma has different priorities. That's okay. And that's kind of where the story heads off to, is that I don't know what either is getting out of this at this point. Like, there are times when it is mutually advantageous for a player or a school, and like I said, sometimes both, to kind of carry things on until everybody finds a landing spot. Jaden O'Neal has plenty of options. Oklahoma is going to be fine. Like, they're chasing Bowe Bentley. That's the guy I think it's pretty clear they're zeroed in on. Having a quarterback, whether it's real or public or however you want to call it, having that guy committed, I don't know how that helps you with Bowe Bentley. I don't think it does. Jaden O'Neal's not hurt. Like, it's not like schools are going to back off of him if he's decommitted from Oklahoma. That may even entice a few others to get even more serious. So I don't know what anybody's getting out of this anymore. And I think maybe I just hit my limit of, like, I can't do the, let's see what happens here. We all know what's going to happen.
I was just about to ask, Josh, and you kind of answered it at the end there, but do you feel like Oklahoma is almost hurting itself by not just moving on and saying, hey, this is what we're going to do moving forward?
I can't say that they are, because there does seem to be confidence with, like, Oklahoma and their relationship with Bowe Bentley. I still think that's where I would pick for him, but it does feel like the window has narrowed a little bit. Like, a month or two ago, I thought he's going to Oklahoma. Now you're like, you've left this door open so long that you're giving LSU a chance to know him better. You're giving Georgia a chance. Like, and Georgia may take themselves out of the running depending on what happens with Jared Curtis or, Jaden O'Neal. There's several guys Georgia's involved with. But LSU has always felt like the most dangerous team, and it's always scary in recruiting when you're just letting somebody hang around. And LSU has Garrett Nussmeier. They're going to put him up on tape and be like, look at this guy. You could be the next one of this guy. And he's probably going to be in that first-round conversation next year. So there's some dangers in what they're doing. I don't know that it ultimately ends up hurting them, but I don't think it's helping them.
In terms of Jared Curtis, by the way, he's making his announcement on May 5th. So that's a week from yesterday, a week from this past Monday on recording this here on Tuesday, April 22nd. So maybe those dominoes start to fall when Jared Curtis does make that announcement, wherever he may go. And obviously Oregon and Georgia, the two teams that he's picking between on May 5th. So should be interesting. Go read Josh's article on kind of everything about the 2026 quarterback position and Ben Arbuckle and which direction Oklahoma might go on that. David Stone, we talked about him on Monday, Josh, on the Portal Report, just in terms of the magnitude of getting him back, the 48-hour trip to the portal coming to an end. Let's talk about kind of this next line, because obviously Todd Bates has started to put together a pretty good defensive line grouping, I guess we'll just call it. We'll just call everything together with him and Miguel Chavis. But there are some names out there that I think Oklahoma fans can kind of start looking at when you're talking about Tavian Branch, Deuce Gerald, Brian Harris, Taj Overton right in Oklahoma's backyard, as well as a kid that visited here this summer, Valdine Sone.
Yeah, we knew Oklahoma was going to have their work cut out for him. Like, that was just inevitable with coming off of last year and all the questions about, what the future looks like at Oklahoma and all those things. But you knew a lot of work was going to have to go into it. I think there's few positions that have done a better job laying that groundwork than Todd Bates in the defensive line. He has really set themselves up where I feel confident about Taj Overton. I feel he in Oklahoma, he's been down there a ton. He's kind of quietly done it, but at the same time, he's been there a lot. Like, I feel like there's a real connection there. Oklahoma's done a lot of the groundwork with him, and I think they're in good shape. I'm not sure where the other one or two guys come from. You can talk about Tavian Branch from Pennsylvania. Watching Taj Overton right here for those, checking it out. A guy that I saw in the playoffs last year, just a physical kind of block eater. Not the biggest, longest guy in the world, but like one of those guys that just eats up a lot of blocks, going to be where he should be, knows how to play physically. I think in time will be a very solid football player, kind of a he's different in the way he plays, but kind of a DJ Terry type of player, like just very solid. You know what you're getting. Just a quality SEC level defensive lineman. But again, to some of their names, Tavion Branch is a guy that I think Oklahoma has really zeroed in on. Big guy, very athletic. I like him on tape, and kind of, to me, I've got him a little higher in my eyes than maybe where some of the rankings have him. I think he's a really good one. Brian Harris from Florida is another guy I love on tape. I can absolutely see what Oklahoma's excited about with him. And he's kind of the like a bigger Grayson Halton, kind of a, I don't know if he starts at defensive end and then maybe moves into tackle over time as he gets bigger, because he's about 275, 280 now. Like, I think tackle is inevitable. I just don't know what the timeline's going to look like. But again, like we talk about all the time, take that athletic edge and move him to tackle, all of a sudden you've got a really dangerous pass rusher on the inside, and I think Oklahoma can make use of that.
Josh, of those guys you mentioned, who would maybe be the biggest get for that group, like a guy that you feel like could be a high-impact player, and maybe also the most difficult? I'm assuming maybe they go hand in hand. Who's the most difficult guy of that group to go get?
George, you nailed it. Like, because the same guy would be my answer to both questions. He's a guy I haven't brought up yet, and that's Deuce Gerald's, the big defensive lineman from Georgia that Oklahoma's been hard after for a while. Honestly, like probably 6 weeks ago, I kind of had started to write that off, and I still think it's going to be a really, really tough win. I hear a lot of Ohio State with this situation, but he keeps coming back, and I keep saying it, on his own dime. He is paying to make the trips to Norman, and I think he's made 4 now in the last 18 months, which is that's a pretty good number from Georgia to Norman, Oklahoma. It's not easily done. And every time I talk to him, he loves it. He loves Todd Bates. There's a really good relationship there. He's kind of he's kind of an upbeat guy. Like, he seems like he fits Bates pretty well. And at the same time, like I said, I mean, you're recruiting in the heart of SEC battlegrounds. You are recruiting against Ohio State, Larry Johnson, all the track record we know. And we also know that Ohio State sees a real void of talent on their defensive line right now. It's not where they're accustomed to it being. And I think they are doing everything they can do to get that fixed, whether it's through the portal, whether it's through high school recruiting. Ohio State is going to be heavily involved with every elite defensive lineman they can get their hands on.
Last week, Carter Scruggs, a offensive lineman out of Leesburg, Virginia, Loudoun County, 6'5", 290. He did visit Oklahoma. What can you tell us about the visit there and just maybe the overall interest? Obviously, somebody traveling from across the country or from one of the coasts. What's in play there for him? I would imagine that Penn State is probably – would he be in that region as well?
Yeah, that's another, you get that DMV area.
Sure.
Penn State's always going to be very, very difficult to contend with. But again, when I talked to him, he felt like one of those guys that wasn't just giving me the, oh yeah, it was a great visit, I enjoyed myself, that kind of thing. It felt like that really surprised me. Like, I liked that more than I thought I would. I think he really hit it off with Bill Bedenbaugh. So I think there is some reason for optimism. But again, it's so much, and this is the hard part for Oklahoma, is because so many of these guys are going to decide before Oklahoma can have the evidence to say, hey, look, this is trending right. Like, we're 4-0 or we're 5-0 or whatever Oklahoma gets to, try to sell with their on-field production. These guys are going to have already made choices. So they've some of these guys, it's got to go on faith a little bit. And I think that's always a tough sell, especially when the primary school you seem to be recruiting against is one of the national title favorites in Penn State and all they return this year. So it's going to be a tough sell. Like, it's not going to be easily done. But again, you're starting to see Oklahoma's offensive line targets and targets in general starting to winnow down a little bit. Like, we saw Gene Rorden just yesterday commits to Iowa. So they are starting – the focus has to start narrowing, and Oklahoma's got to start reeling some of these guys in because – the whole class is currently at 4 commitments. That's not – I know people are like, oh, that's terrible. It's not. Like, the national average is like 6. Normally, I think you'd be at about 8 or 9 right now when I've done the math before. So it's below pace. It absolutely is. But it was always going to be, and I think Oklahoma knows that. And so, to their credit, they're dealing with that, with a plan. It's not just, oh, what do we do now? So again, I think this can be okay, but they do need to, whether it's offensive line or elsewhere, they've got to start building some momentum.
I know there's some other guys we want to get to, but while we're on the topic, Josh, I'm going to put you totally on the spot here. When do you think is OU's next commitment?
Well, I think you asked me like 3 weeks ago, and I thought it would be about now. Like,
Yeah.
I thought there would be another one, and I'll be honest, I kind of was looking at Mason James. I kind of felt like that was going to head in a different direction. It seems like now, I think James, along with a few other guys, they're kind of evaluating and making sure, like, okay, these are the guys we want to push forward with. It's not that they don't like Mason James. I think it's falling into some of that front office stuff, George, where we've talked about it. And we knew these things were going to happen, where everybody's got to be on the same page. And there's got to be a conversation where you have guys like Nagy and Red and all these guys that have all this NFL background looking at these players and saying, are these the type of guys that end up in the NFL draft? Because that's, guys, we can say however we want to and, rah-rah and team spirit and all that sort of stuff. The better your football team is, the more NFL draft picks you've got. Like, they go hand in hand very easily. And so I think they are taking a long look at seeing, are these the kind of guys that project well? Are they the kind of guys that we've seen their body types turn into NFL guys? And having a look at those things. And again, I don't know that a verdict has been reached, but I do think it's something they're looking at. So you've seen a few guys that maybe OU was a little out in front for, that maybe there's at least, I wouldn't know if it's tapping the brakes, but maybe, maybe just letting off the gas a little bit and kind of seeing what transpires.
Should have mentioned him when we were talking about the 2026 defensive lineman as well. But 2027, we talked about him, I think, last week coming out of the Under Armour event down at Houston. Jalen Brewster, the defensive lineman out of Texas. Certainly somebody that, caught your eye. Just any type of follow-up from what you were able to see and just Oklahoma's overall interest there.
Yeah, again, I think Oklahoma, and it's a broken record. Todd Bates does a good job. Like the acronyms and all that stuff, it's crazy. I don't know why it hits like it hits for these guys, but they love it. I mean, we're not going to talk about the fact that male kangaroos don't have pouches. I'm not going to get into that. I'll avoid it. But the thing with Jalen Brewster is, I think there's a comfort with Todd Bates. Todd Bates has a very when you talk to players, like kind of a dad, thing. Like, they can talk to him about anything. He's very, very direct. He's not going to sugarcoat too much, but at the same time, he's warm.
Sure.
It's not a disciplinarian conversation. So I think guys really like him. I would expect Jalen Brewster to be up maybe once, maybe twice this summer. It wouldn't shock me at all if he just came to camp and hung out, like we've seen guys do through the years, or if he came and just worked out to kind of work out with Todd Bates again. I think those are all possibilities. And then again, like, you look at the barbecue toward the end of the summer, he's one of those high-profile junior guys that you usually see kind of get invites.
Oklahoma has had some success, obviously, in the Houston area recruiting, specifically last year bringing in Cortland Guillory, who had a pretty good spring for Oklahoma at cornerback. Micah Rhodes, we kind of met him about a year ago in about a month's time. When he came up for Brent Venables football camp at the 2028 running back. You had a chance to see him on Sunday go through a little bit of a workout. I would imagine he's only getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, want to give a shout out to my guy Donnie Baggs. Always does a good job with the Houston area stuff. Puts a lot of training sessions together, and he had his big camp on Sunday afternoon over at CE King in Houston. And again, Micah was a guy that we talked about it at Under Armour. I didn't get to watch him as much as I wanted to. And in this one, I really got to see him. You saw him do some cat and mouse stuff. For those not familiar, it's basically running back's going to line up, and then a linebacker's going to line up, and they're in a hole, and they're just trying to make somebody miss. It's kind of like an Oklahoma drill without the offensive lineman, or without the lineman in general. So I thought he is, but I've seen him a couple times. This is the highlight from the game I went and saw against Klein earlier this year, or I guess late last year. He is a big, sturdy guy, real explosive, good twitch. I would expect this year as a sophomore at Oak, I mean, he's probably going to put up 1,500, 1,700 yards. I'm betting he's thinking 2,000. Like, he'll have a big year. And the thing I like about him, and I watched him at camp, as a running back, he went out and lined up at receiver. He did some different stuff. Like, he wasn't just a guy that's like, well, I'm just a running back. Like, he was, you could tell he was working on his skills. Like, I want to be better. How can I do this? How can I learn to run this route a little better? And he's talking with coaches and that kind of stuff. So, again, I like Micah Rhodes as a player. I like his makeup. I like what he's about. He's a guy that I think makes a ton of sense for DeMarco Murray. I think they would be very much in line. It's just kind of how they look at football and how they, how serious I think they both take it.
No doubt. One more guy to get through, then I want to get your thoughts on a couple of not miscellaneous, but not exactly recruiting. We'll get there in a second. Jake Godfrey, Oklahoma offered him last week, a linebacker out of Georgia, another Lawrenceville, Georgia, North Gwinnett High School. But did you take a look at the film and just kind of see what Nate Dreiling sees in Jake Godfrey?
Yeah, you look at this guy from another great Georgia program, produces a lot of talent. And this is a guy actually talked a lot about his relationship with Wes Goodwin, and really having from when Wes was at Clemson, they were involved with him there, and I think they had built a relationship. So I definitely think Oklahoma is a real contender there. He talked about, really liking the visit, liking how, the program, guys, we talk about it all the time. There's a lot of linebackers walking around that building, whether it's real or whether it's current or former. There's a lot of guys that think about that position. I think that resonated with him a little bit. But yeah, again, there is no question. I don't know if there's a coach, maybe outside of Bill Bedenbaugh, that better fits. When I talk to players as a recruiter, like what he's like, that better fits the personality of a position than Nate Dreiling. Like, guys are like, that dude's at 100 all the time, and they love it. I mean, he is made to be a linebacker's coach and recruiter.
Certainly will be a name to keep an eye on here moving forward for Oklahoma in that 2027 class. Josh, I don't think that we've talked to you since the news broke that Oklahoma's hired Kel Pearson, a name that was very familiar to the OK Prep scene. Remember watching him up at Union. What do you make of the hire there, the addition to Jim Nagy's front office, and the scouting director for high school relations for Oklahoma?
Well, what I like is, we so often see coaches, general managers, whatever it may be, whether it's NFL, college, at any level, there's a lot of like, well, that guy's my buddy, I'm going to hire him. From everything we've heard, this is a guy that Jim Nagy liked on reputation. Like, he knew about him a little bit, knew about his connections to the state of Oklahoma, and realized, like, okay, this is a guy I can work with. And when you talk to people at Union, it's kind of like, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of always saw him
coach's
becoming
kid,
this kind of guy.
Around it, for sure.
Yeah. And so I think it's just he's well made for this. I think we always love like the elite players. The DeMarco Murrays, the guys that were truly great football players. And like, we love to put put them in position, let them teach or let them evaluate or whatever. I think guys like this tend to do and not to say that DeMarco doesn't, but just in his specific case, I think guys like this do a really good job of seeing the little things that other people miss sometimes. Like, I had to do it that way because of this. I wasn't as tall, or I wasn't as perfect as I wasn't a specimen as a wide receiver or whatever. So I think they can sometimes appreciate the hidden gem a little better. And sometimes, even at a place like Oklahoma, you've got to be good with your evaluations to find the guy that not everybody knows, because you're not always going to win on the elite guys.
Sure.
I don't know about you, Josh, but I'm really interested to see how he works with the staff, because I feel like that's been a big question mark, is like, how does this front office work with the coaching staff? And what we're seeing right now in the transfer portal is the front office is kind of running the show in terms of who they're going after, what positions they're targeting, all of those sorts of things in the portal. I wonder how much, and I think high school recruiting's a little bit different, because I think there's gonna the coaching staff is gonna have guys they really like at the high school level, but it feels like Kel Pearson is a really good guy to work well with the the coaching staff. I don't know. I haven't heard how that's gonna work yet, Josh, but just I guess your thoughts on that relationship.
I feel like that's so key, George, because when it comes to portal evaluations, Jim Nagy and his guys need to be running that because that's what they've been doing their entire careers, is looking at college players, evaluating who has the best upside, who can help, who projects it, into what kind of roles, those sort of things. So, like, that makes absolute sense. The people who have said, well, Jim Nagy and his guys haven't done a lot of high school evaluations, that's true. It's just blatantly true. So I think Cale Pearson's job could be a lot more important than people think, in that he can kind of have almost the go-between of the high school recruiting effort with the staff and the front office and say, okay, I've coached, I've only looked at high school players in my entire career. This is what I see. But clearly, on the flip side, he was hired by Jim Nagy. He's had conversations with Jim Nagy, and Nagy can say, this is what we're thinking. This is what we're looking at. And so I wonder if there is a real kind of like the leverage point between the staff and the coaches of, the coaches will listen to him because he's coached. He's been on their side and he's coached at the college level. He's evaluated high school players. But at the same time, Jim Nagy has shown the trust to say, hey, you're a front office guy. I believe you can do this side of it. So I think that could be a really key point and could be one of the more important pieces of this front office staff, especially when we know, and I know everybody's sick of hearing me talk about it on Twitter and everywhere else, this team's going to be built through the high school recruiting. Like, that's the way this is going to go if Oklahoma is going to get to where they want to go.
Lastly, we are getting to a point of the spring where you're going to see coaches all out and about. Even while we were recording this, our boy, Toa Katoa, he got paid a visit by the entire offensive staff today. Emmett Jones, Ben Arbuckle, Bill Beaton, Bowe, who's looking fantastic, by the way. He's lost a shit ton of weight. Yeah. He looks great. Joe John Finley, as well as DeMarco Burry, they all visited Katoa. I would imagine they're going to be out and about here throughout the, really the entirety of the rest of April here as Texas gets underway with their spring football. Oklahoma will get underway with their spring football here in a couple weeks. Kind of interesting. Are you just kind of monitoring where these guys are ending up? I know Emmett Jones made a trip out to California, did you say, at the beginning of the week? So they're going to be out and about. You're going to see that on social media, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll have some stories kind of tracking where the guys end up on each day and that kind of stuff, kind of going over who they're seeing, what they're looking at. Because anytime you get a situation like that where, you've got a big group of staff that show up in Dallas to recruit that guy. Okay, well, Emmett Jones is going to – I guarantee you Emmett Jones, as soon as he leaves that, he's probably headed over to DeSoto, to Lancaster. He's going over to all the places where he's a well-known entity and making sure OU's putting in the rounds there. Duncanville, another perfect example. So there is, and you're just going to watch all those guys spread out. Todd, if Todd Bates in the area, he's going to go by and see Jalen Brewster at Cedar Hill. So like that, you are going to have the full round of guys getting out. This is that time of year, because the nice thing for Oklahoma is with all the in-state prospects we've talked about, and there's a lot of them over these next couple of years, that Oklahoma, I think, will probably make a more clear effort. We're going to see them out at more high schools this year than probably we have in years past, just because that 2027 group could be so fundamental to what they're doing in that class. Right now, they can get out nationally, where, like you said, Texas is having their practices. I'm going to start getting out and seeing some of those in the next few days. So there's a lot to see. They can get out, get ahead, and then kind of take stock of where everything is as they head into June for official visits.
Josh, I didn't know if we were going to get to this or not, but they released the new On3 300. No OU commits in that. Like you said, they only have 4 guys committed in the 26 class. So there's not a whole lot of guys to be picked from to be in it. But just your thoughts on that, and I have a follow-up question once you're done with that.
Yeah, I mean, guys, it's a surprising set of circumstances. Like you look at their commitments. I think Jaden O'Neal is clearly the guy. Even with all we've talked about before, he's still on the commitment list. So he's the guy that it surprises me. I like Jaden O'Neal. I like the upside. I think when you look at quarterbacks in this class and just said, okay, who are the guys that could be a number 1 overall pick? Jaden O'Neal is one of the guys at that position that has that sort of upside. Like, he has that much potential. Now, do I think that Oklahoma's offense is the best fit for him to do so? No, but that's not what people are ranking on. That's not what we base that on. We base that on how you project, where you fit. Like, if you fit into more offenses, better. Like that's all good. But again, with his kind of arm talent, his athleticism, there's a lot in front of Jaden O'Neal. So it kind of surprises me that he has continued to slide down the rankings a little bit. But again, we'll get into, I know we want to talk a little bit about some of the guys that are there, but I would say he's the biggest surprise. And then other than that, the other three guys are all very solid players, but I don't think you'd have them in the 300 in most years.
All right, Josh, follow-up question to that. Over under 3.5 guys on Oklahoma's 2026 recruiting class that end up in the top 300.
I would say over, just because you're Oklahoma. Like, honestly, even if there is a change that should happen, you're going to probably steal a few guys. You're going to hire somebody that's got some relationships. I would be pretty surprised if they couldn't hit that number, because that's just like that. I mean, that's not even the baseline of expectation. That's well below the baseline of expectation. So I think that is something they need to hit. I think they will. And I mean, you look at it. We talked earlier about Bowe Bentley. He's number 42 in the country. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks, maybe 7 in the country, according to the On3 rankings. Jake Cruel's number 80. Drew Evers is 111. Like, you can go down the list. There's 17 guys that I've marked through this list and said, Oklahoma's a realistic contender with that many guys. Now, they're not going to get even half of those guys, in my opinion. But if you get 4 or 5 or 6, okay, you've kind of weathered the storm that we knew 2026 could be complicated. And then you can start to move forward where, like we just talked about, 2027, you have such a chance in state. If you can nail it in state, you can start off almost, with 4, maybe 3, 4, 5 top 300 guys from your own state lines, and then you build out from there.
How many did they get last year? Sorry, Eddie.
No, go ahead.
How many did they get last year in the top 300? Do we know?
Let's see. It would have been Fasusi, Foj, Elijah Thomas, Tristan Haynes, Trent Wilson. She got 5
right
there,
there.
And I bet I'm forgetting somebody else. They had Trinae Washington in that list. I want to say he was like 294 or something like that.
Was Manny Choice
that
in
would have been?
Or no.
Manny Choice was 291.
I think he was. Okay. I was like, he was right on the fringe.
So
I thought
7.
Torrey Blaylock was also in.
8.
And then you had somebody like we'll throw out there, Omarion Robinson. I think he finished 310. So just out on the outside. I mean, and you're probably...
Well, and if you just go by On3, they had Marcus Wimberly as a top 210 guy in the country. He was 209 in the country, according to On3. So they liked him a lot.
Oh, I was looking at the consensus. Disregard everything.
No, and I was too, Eddie. I mean, you can do it either way.
Yeah.
But anyways,
like,
they had, somewhere in the 6 to 8 range is kind of what you're probably shooting for year to year.
Yeah. That should be the minimum requirement. Because, I mean, again, that class ended up number 17 in the country. If you're going to be what OU expects to be, you got to do more than that. You just do. And I think it was it wasn't so much that 8 is a bad number, but of that 8, 4 of them need to be top 70 guys. Like, you need to have more of that really premier, and really OU had Fasusi and Foj. Now, I think Elijah Thomas is in that conversation, and it sounds like early returns are, we're all going to sound pretty smart on him. But, again, you just need more of those guys to kind of hit that level.
I was just thinking of, when you're talking about the coaches going around Dallas, Emmett Jones, like a day with Emmett Jones making all the high school stops in Dallas in the DFW area. I would imagine he parades around like a Baker Mayfield might have at 747 back in the day, like the C's part, and he just walked straight into the football offices.
I can tell, like,
he doesn't have to check in up front
there. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Emmett's like the guy that, like, they see him on the security cameras and they're like, oh, that's just Emmett. Like, the secretaries know him. Like, they ain't worried about where he's going. He knows everybody. Like, he is so well connected in that area. And, guys, there's There's some talk that maybe Oklahoma's going to find some wins at Duncanville. Zachary Turner's name's kind of come back up again, kind of along those lines. No, this wasn't something we were planning to talk about, but they are. It seems like
KJ
some doors
Ford
are
helping?
closing and some other stuff's opening. Huh?
Do you think that's KJ Ford doing a little bit of in the locker room recruitment?
I think it's possible. And what's really interesting is how the tables have turned there. Early on, it was really Zach getting KJ to look at Oklahoma, and then KJ and Zach seemed like they kind of moved in different directions, and then KJ really was all on board, and now it kind of feels like KJ's like, "Hey man, come take a look again." Like I think it's again, I'm still not sure everyone around KJ, like national recruiting guys or even regional recruiting guys. I'm not sure everyone's gathered how serious KJ Ford is about Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. I still get the impression it's like, oh, yeah, Oklahoma's kind of hanging around there. I'm like, I think he'd pick Oklahoma today if he was picking.
Like a lot of things around here, things can change with a really good season on field for Brent Venables in 2025. It's going to be a big year. All right, that's going to do it for this week's recruiting report. We will continue following everything out of the portal, obviously, and then go read Josh's story on the quarterback situation for Ben Arbuckle at Oklahoma with Jaden O'Neal and Bowe Bentley, and maybe that comes to a head here in a couple weeks. Jared Curtis making that announcement on May 5th, and then maybe things start to trickle out after that. For George and Josh, I'm Eddie. We will see you here next time on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.